Hey everyone, welcome to tonight's live stream. Hope you guys are doing great and hope you got a chance to check out the Evergreen, Colorado Adventure Van Expo film. It was an awesome time. We had a great time there. Today's live stream, we're going to go over an update on where the van's at. We're making a really hard push. Got a timeline of 3 weeks to go ahead and lay everything out. All the major stuff is taken care of. So now what we're doing is I'm going to walk you through the process of why I'm putting in the floor. I put in the floor first, then put things around it, and then I'm kind of going backwards, taking everything out so I can install the floor completely. So we'll go over that. The next thing we'll go over is we're going to talk about the plumbing system over here. So specifically the water tank. We're going to talk about the ventilation for the water tank, where that needs to be placed, as well as a drain valve that you can access from the back of the van or wherever you want to put it. And then on the left-hand side, we'll just kind of quickly go over what's going to happen with the electrical. And on that one, we're going to talk about the AC breaker. So I'm going to put that over here so I don't forget. Then, as usual, if you guys have any questions, put those in the chat. I'll be happy to answer them. It can be anything van related. It doesn't have to be about what we're talking tonight. It can even be about the Adventure Van Expo, the vans we saw. We can even talk about that whole entire film. I might even do that at the end anyway. So the camera is in a weird position because, I just want to use that camera to start talking about everything in the back of the van. All right, so give me a second. All right, as far as the van goes, what we're doing is traditionally what you would do is you would put in the floor first, go ahead and lay everything out, glue the floor down, kind of just like we did in Thomas's van, and then kind of build up from there. This van's a little bit more complex in the layout, specifically because of a couple things. If you've been following along with the build, we have a flip and fold seat up there that holds 2 additional passengers, so that spot is cut out in the floor. Coming back from there, we have an in-floor shower pan, so it's like a hidden in-floor shower pan, so that takes up a major cutout, and that has to be located really precise. And then as we come back, we have our gasoline-fired heater over here. So this van is for transit, it's gas, it's not diesel. So that takes another chunk out of there. And then further back, we have 2 items over here. On the left, we have a very big Renogy Rego inverter, and that's taken up a lot of room. So much so that we actually have to, down here, there's not going to be any insulation. What we will have is some sound deadening, so that'll help a little bit, but our height between the L-track and the bottom, we just don't have enough space because we want to keep this design where this transition piece comes flat, and the same thing happens over here. And then finally what we'll get to are these 2 holes that I drilled right here. One is a drain for the tank, another one is a vent for the tank. So we'll talk about why those things are important. So the next step, getting back to the floor, you can see that all the components that are laid out on top of the floor, there's a lot of changes that have to be made. So instead of just simply putting a floor in and building on top of it, the location of everything has to consider where those cutouts are in the floor. So on top, we're using Flatline Vanco kitchen galley. We have the 41-inch that's over here on the right, and then we got the 24-inch that's over here on the left. What's interesting about the 24 is it's been modified. So if you go on Flatline Vanco's website, this thing is very light. And if you bought this as is, this would house a isotherm drawer 65 fridge. And so from here up, there's a smaller hole. So one of these subscribers, had a good suggestion that maybe the Isotherm Cruise 130 could fit in here, and it did. So I was already needing to get this powder coated. Flatline Vanco is going with a kind of like a satin finish versus the matte that they used to have. So I got stock from a matte finish, and then I got the new finish. So the gloss was kind of semi-gloss was on the 41-inch cabinet, and then the 24-inch had the matte. So I needed to go ahead and cut this and also modify the back. So guess what? It fits an Isotherm Cruise 130 perfectly now that I've cut this out. And then the back here, what's cool about this and why I chose Flatline Vanco is these are Adventure Wagon compatible systems. So you see these slots right here. So these slots actually allow you to bolt this cabinet into the L track. So the height of this is the same height as the L track on the lower level. And the slot allows you to adjust if you have a thicker or thinner floor. You'll still be able to do that. This one modification I made here is to allow the bed system to mount flush behind this cabinet. And that's going to allow us to have a really cool, just seamless transition between the kitchen galleys and the bed system. So once all this, the galleys and everything are in, and we got it laid out on the floor, then what we can do is start to remove these items. So next week what we'll be doing is taking out, well actually it'll be this week. Traveling has messed me up on the days. All right, so we'll be taking out these two cabinets this week and taking everything off of our floor. We'll take out the heater that's temporarily in there. We'll take out the flip and fold. And so now that we have all the markings on our floor, everything cut out, everything's going to come out. And then we can actually, piece by piece, do our sound deadening on the floor with our kill mat. And then we'll come up from that. We'll put our insulation down one at a time. And I'm going to be using silicone, so the mold-free silicone. I used it in my personal van. It works really well. We actually used it in Thomas's van. And what I like about the silicone is not only is it a good adhesive, but it allows you time, instead of like the 3M90 that's just instant, it gives you time to kind of move it around and get it where you want it. And then you put some weight on it, locks, glues right into place. It's just a little bit more forgiving than like a 3M90 or adhesive like that. So we'll do that. We'll put the floor in. We'll do a whole video on that. And then once the floor's in, we'll put the lawn seal on, and then we can start to cut out all of our holes. Remember, if you guys have watched the lawn seal installation video, we want to dry fit the lawn seal flooring and cut as much of it out as we possibly can precisely. That way, when we go to put it back in, we put the epoxy down, it'll go much, much smoother. We don't have to worry about rushing because you only have a 30-minute pot life. So what that means is when you mix the part A and B epoxy together, the reaction starts to heat up. And you have 30 minutes from the time that reaction starts to place it on the floor. The instructions state that you have 15 minutes, that you need to mix it and let it sit for 15 minutes to cure. And then once you're done, you're going to have 15 minutes after that to apply it. And if you divide this in half, you're going to have 7 minutes over here to trowel it out, and then 7 minutes over here to trowel it out. It's very quick, so it's a little bit stressful, but if you fold it in half and just do one side, then flip into the other side, you can do it. It's achievable, and you can do a good job. Final step is you're going to have to use a roller. So you can rent this from rental company. I get mine from Sunbelt Rentals, so they have a 100-pound roller. It's a steel roller, and I take it and I roll after the application, and that just gets any bubbles out if there ever was any, and then you go ahead and let that set for 24 hours, and you're all set. So that's kind of A to Z on what's going to happen with the floor. The last bit of prep that we need to do before the floor gets in is any type of modification to our panels, insulation, stuff like that. And the first place that you need to go is any type of penetrations through the floor. Now obviously we have room, so when the floor is finished we can work on the plumbing for the in-floor shower, and we can do it for the flip and fold. However, places over here like the water drain and the vent, they're very narrow and tight. So if you glue the floor down and you needed to enlarge the hole or do something like that, I'm even going to show you this here in just a second. But say for example, you have this vent. All right, this is our vent tube. So for example, this is going to be embedded in the floor. This is going to be insulation, then this is going to be flooring, and then you're going to get to the top of this. So it's impossible to get underneath here once the floor's in. So stuff like this is what you need to make your own checklist and start thinking about things that you can't access after you've glued your floor in. So back here, what I wanted to talk about today is the two items, which are this vent, which we're going to show you where I got that, and got all of our PEX A stuff here. And then we also have our shutoff valve. So this is a PEX A shutoff valve. So this is actually going to go in line right here, like that, and then we're going to have the vent line over here on the right. So let's go ahead and show you the vent line. So you may ask, why do you need a vent line in a tank? So think of this water tank almost like an air tank. So when you fill up with water, what you're doing is you're displacing the air that's trapped inside the tank. And if you didn't have where for it to go, technically if it was fully sealed, you get to a point to where you're building pressure in the tank. We don't want pressure in the tank. So we want it to be able to be filled up easily, and then we want it to also be drained easily. And draining also means turning on the faucet, sucking the water out of it. So it needs to breathe. On the top of the tanks, or any type of water tank like this, you're going to have multiple ports. Some will be closed, and some will be already open for you. Stop. So the ones that are, I only use the 1/2 inch. If you needed to use some type of an easier or faster method for getting the water in and out, you can use the bigger openings. But you need the tank to breathe. One thing that's challenging is you need a vent tube. I like to have the vent tube go outside of the van, so in the event that the tank overfills, it'll go through the vent tube and dump to the ground. That's more of a safety feature. Instead of venting inside your van and you fill it up and then get water all the inside your van. So it's better to vent it out. The challenge is when it does vent outside your van, you don't want bugs and stuff getting into the vent tube. So you need to either put a mesh screen around it. So that's what we did. Nova is barking, as you guys can hear. So a vent screen, or you can do something nice and fancy like this from the marine world, and we're going to talk about this right here. So this is from West Marine, and it is a chromed brass through-hole fitting, or through-hole vent. So if you go here, through-hole vent, this is West. Actually, I'm going to show you guys the Amazon link to this. So this is what we're talking about. Looks just like this. It's not too expensive. It's brass, but it's chrome-plated brass. Brass is nice because you don't want anything that's steel or anything like that. Because you may nick it or scratch it, and you don't want it to rust. And so brass is nice. So what you're going to do is this, you can see, has these vents. Let's see if I can get a different view. So it's got 2 vents. And if I were you guys, what I would do is just do what I do, which is, let me pull this out. So if you want to be OCD like Nick, you can see there's 2 vents on the backhand side. So when you put this underneath the van, just point the vents towards the back of the van so that the air coming up underneath the van will blow past it and not directly into the vents. But this vent right here, what you're going to do is this is going to go underneath the vent into that hole. And so this will be mounted up underneath the floor of the van like that. And then if you are filling up your tank, so we're going to use an Aqua water fill port. So let's look up that as well. So this is what we're going to use to fill it. They make one right here. It's an Aqua RV City Water Inlet. I know it's quite expensive, but it's really nice. It's just a push and twist fitting with a on and off valve. And basically what you do is this unit, if you look on the left photo, or this drawing, there's a spring that depresses. So when you depress the spring, it opens up the valve, allows you to put water in the tank. When you remove this valve, the shutoff valve that's attached to your water hose, it automatically shuts off. So it auto seals when you take it out, and it opens when you twist in. So it's a really nice piece of tech for your van. It's nicer than what you would have, which would be like this type of thing. These things are fine, but they tend to leak sometimes because you'll have a seal here, but then the inner seal may leak. So if you look in the comments, some people complain about it leaking. This one, however, based on the price, it's made very, very well. It has an half-inch NPT fitting, so it's going to, all you need to do is have a male-to-male fitting, and you'll be able to screw it directly into your water tank. Anyway, so we're going to use this. So when we put this in and we go ahead and start to add water to our tank, what our valve is going to do, or this vent piece, is going to let the air that's being pushed or displaced by the water, and it's going to allow it up here in the top to go somewhere. So this is located at the very top of the tank so that it's air, not water. You don't want to put it at the bottom because it wouldn't, do its job. But you can use it twofold. One, it lets the air go in and out. Doesn't let things get into your tank. It lets the tank breathe. It's not in your van. It's outside your van. And then finally, it's okay if you fill your tank up and you have water come out of the bottom of your van. That's okay. That's really kind of like the benefit of this is you can kind of, I wouldn't do that all the time, but you can use it as just an overflow prevention. And last but not least, we're going to cut a panel out here so that we can have a light, like a blue LED light like we did on Thomas's van, and we can check the water level. I like that because we're not drilling into the tank. We're not creating more potential leaks. We can just visually see the level. This is a 40-gallon tank. You're probably going to know when you run out because it's going to take a long time for this tank to run out. So a simple check in the back when you're at a rest area or fill up, and you don't have to, you can forego all the electronics in a tank leveling sensor, which I think is a little bit overkill. I don't think the convenience outweighs the drilling into the tank. All right, so that's the vent, and that is why you need a vent. All right, so we'll be adding this to one of our parts here. Next, we have the drain port. Now, there's a big hole on this opposite side right here. And that would, evacuate all your water very fast. However, you're probably not going to be draining your tank all the time. And those fittings are very big. So that fitting, for example, is, I think it's 1.5 inches. Yeah, that's 1.5 inches fitting. It's very big and bulky, and it just wouldn't work in this application. Plus, like I just said, you're not going to be draining your tank all the time. My suggestion to you is if you need to drain your tank quickly, what you can do is you can have your 1/2 inch valve, which I know it's small, but again, repeating myself, you're not going to be draining your tank all the time. You may do it to winterize, or if you just need to let the water out after a trip, you can just let it drain to the ground. You don't have to babysit it. But one valve here, and then guess what? You can turn your water pump on and have it run out in the road to pump the water out of your tank if you really need to get it out quickly. But I like these simple valves. So it's just a drain valve. Up is in the closed position, so the water will not drain, and then you just turn it over here, the water drains out. So this will go right here, and then we'll be able to access that so that we can drain the tank. And so that is why we need to go ahead and find those 2 holes, because it's really challenging to hunt around and find where you can actually do that. On the underside of the Ford Transit, there's all kinds of nooks and crannies, there's frame members, and the challenge is when you're doing a DIY van is where can I even drill so I'm not drilling into the frame, into a location that's not even accessible. So that's why I do it with the floor out. And the way that I find all my stuff in the van and where I can kind of poke and prod is I have a very, very tiny drill bit, but it's very long, okay, and this is very strong. So this is what I use. So what I'll do is I'll take my tape measure and I'll find a place that's, you got to be reasonable. You don't want to be drilling into your fuel tank. If you know where your fuel tank is, just avoid that area. So be reasonable, go to the back of your van and just kind of start taking your measuring tape and kind of going through here and, kind of just, squaring up where you think a good place to drill a hole is. The nice thing about using such a small item to drill in your van is if you put a hole in the wrong space, no problem. Just take some adhesive sealant or even silicone and do a little bit of rust preventative, fill the hole up, and you're fine. You can move on. So what I do for this is, this inside hole, I didn't know where it's going to be because there's a bunch of adhesive from Ford underneath the van, and I don't know how close I want to get to it. So what you'll do is drill one hole, and then use that hole as your reference to find where you can put the other hole, or where you want to put the other hole. And so that's what I do. So I'll drill one, and then I'll go underneath the van, and I'll say, okay, I can put this drain valve, where do I put it? I can put this drain valve, 4.5 inches from here, and I'll have enough room so that I can put my washer and everything on. So that's what I did over here to find that spot. Same goes with like the drain pan, the shower, and all that stuff. And once you do that, you'll get more confident in drilling holes in your van, because I know it's challenging to do that. So that's a good way to find and locate the drain and the vent port for your van. All right, so that's our tank. That's pretty much it for the back of the tank. On the front of the tank, we have just one fitting, so it's really nice. We have 1/2 inch fitting, and that is what's going to be used to supply our water pump with the water from the tank. Simply go to the pump, and then we kind of plumb it from there. Another pro tip is, in a perfect world, keep your water and power, on one side. So if your sink is on the right side, put your water tank on the right side. If your electrical is on the left side, don't put any water over there to that side. It's not really a problem of mixing water and electricity. It's more a problem of accessibility if in the need of a repair. So, for example, if I did want a sink on the left side, say just for some reason, and I needed to put the lines underneath the van going over there, so two things can happen. One, do I have enough room underneath my floor or height to actually put those lines in there? If something happened, how would I access them? And then three, is it in an area to where it's going to get so cold, or I'm going to go into a cold environment to where it's actually going to freeze? Because when you put the insulation on top of the water pipes, you're insulating them from the warmth of the van. So they're not going to get the warmth. They're just going to get the cold from the road. But that's really extreme temperatures. There's a lot of worry that, when it's winter out, your tank's going to freeze. We're not going to get into the details of this, but like the thermal mass of water, it takes a long time, longer than you think, for the water to actually freeze, especially if it's inside a van. So yeah, don't worry too much about that. But if you have your lines running underneath your van, yes, that can be a concern, because where this tank is in the van and receiving the heat from the heater and the vents and your gas heater, if the lines are underneath the insulation, they're not receiving that heat and they're blocked from it, so they're not going to stay, warm. So, okay, talked about this front and the back. Next, we're going to move on to the electrical. If you guys have any questions, just put those in the comments below. I will answer those tonight. But for electrical, while you have the chance and the floor is not covered and glued down, now is the time to start mapping out how the electricity is going to get to where it needs to go. So I'm going to take out the tank because the next part involves me showing you some stuff on the floor. And I'm not sure if I mentioned it in a past live stream, but we'll talk about it again. A good pair of calipers is really nice to work with because you have a couple things. So this is a piece of PEX A hose, and this needs to make sure it fits through the hole. So if you have a pair of calipers, you can just quickly measure and see, what drill bit you need to use, and then you can actually buy these extremely big drill bits. What's nice about using this versus a hole saw is that you can, this is going to cut a much cleaner hole. You don't have to worry about that center hole that the hole saw has to use as a guide, not guiding itself properly. It's happened to me before. So this is nice because you can use it both in wood and the metal. And then you can just say, you can kind of put this in a kit, so whenever you need to drill through the floor, you've got everything. And one thing I forgot to mention, when you're doing the PEX lines, you're going to want to make sure that they're not vibrating and flopping all over the place. So if you go to a Lowe's or wherever you have your PEX A, there's these clamps called Hold Right, 1/2 inch. And these are great because what I do is I modify these and I cut one side of this off, and then I drill this out and I put a 5/16 18 screw And so what that allows me to do is wherever I have 80/20, I can open this up. I can put my PEX tube in it like that. And then I can bolt it to the 80/20 and then make sure it doesn't vibrate, kind of go make a lot of noise. We had to do a lot of that on Thomas's van because we put a 12-inch JL audio subwoofer in the van, and as you can imagine, we don't want anything to rattle, so I was taking every step possible to make sure it didn't rattle, and it sounds great. Okay, let's move this tank and go to the next part of the video. If you guys are wondering, this tank is a 40-gallon tank from Northwest Conversions, and it has it's made for over-the-wheel well design, and they make a left-hand and a right-hand version, or passenger and driver, however you would like to say it. Another pro tip: if you use 1-inch insulation and use 1/2-inch flooring, then your 2x2s, you can just get them and do some offcuts, and you can actually just lay it wherever you need to in the van and support things when you don't have the flooring system in there, but you want to maintain like a level. I put the tank in, I want to make sure it fits right. I don't have the floor, so I can just support it like this, and that's just nice. If you use anything bigger on the installation or the thickness of the flooring, then this little cheap you can't use. All right, let's see if I can pull you guys in a little bit closer. All right, so inside the van, we're going to be back here, and I don't know if it's going to show up on camera, but I'm just going to use this to kind of point and show you. And I went too far because I need to show you this rear channel where the tape is. There we go. Okay, so in the back of the van, we have the corrugation, so those are the ribs. And then in a couple places, I think there's 3 places in the van. There's one here, there's one in the middle of this, and then there's one here. So we have the seams that are glued in the van. What's nice is those are reliefs, and those reliefs allow you to have wires pass across the van. So over here, this is the shower pan. We don't want to put wires around here, so that one we can't use. We can't use this one because it is intersected by the heater. So we're going to utilize the back one right here. We don't have too many wires. What we're doing is we need a positive and negative supply, 6 gauge for the breaker panel that's going to go under the sink area. That's going to control all the fuses for the LED lights, the outside porch light, switches, and also the USB ports on the interior of the van and some other lighting. So we need those 2 wires. We also need a 110 or 120 volt line coming from the breaker here, which we'll talk about in a second, all the way over here. That's going to supply power for the water heater. It's going to have an extra outlet for outside, so if you want to cook the induction, we have a little table that's going to be mounted on a lagoon arm, so you can use the induction outside, and then also an outlet to be used inside. So those wires are going to come through here. They're going to come down underneath the water tank, and then what we've done here is we've kind of marked on our wood where that wire run is going to come underneath our floor, because we're going to put the wires down and then put our floor on top of them. Technically, there's enough gap to where if you needed to pull the wire and replace it from the back, you could, but that's really highly unlikely. Anyway, we're going to have this up, but what we need to measure is we're going to do a hole saw cutout, and we need the wires to come up into the kitchen galley so that we can mount them into our fuse box. So while you have everything open, the floor is not on here, you can draw and then find out where your wire is going to come. Use a square, and then that's where you'll label your hole to put the wires in. So identify where you're going to run the wires, and then come back over here to the power side and find out 12-volt wire runs are very easy in my opinion. You know, you can run them anywhere. They're thin gauge, not that big of a deal. And 12-volt is really not that dangerous. But when you have an inverted household power, up to 110, 120 volts, that's where it does get dangerous and you need to be very careful. So when power goes into and comes out of this box, which is our Blue Sea Systems 120 volt AC, now we're talking, you know, dangerous power. Stuff that we need to make sure is done appropriately and wired correctly. But also, it needs to be in a location that is accessible. So, what we're going to do is, this is going to come back here, and we're going to mount it right there. So, our power system goes here. We've got our batteries up here on the top. We've got our heater, and then this little box right here, we've got an area where we're going to be able to fit this and run our wires. Now, the reason you want it is, in my opinion, the closer you can get it to the inverter, the better, because that one wire that's supplying this, you don't have to run it so far. 2, in a perfect world, this is going to be close to your main sources of power or use. So our main source for this one is going to be our water heater. So we come over here and we supply our water heater. Then we're going to supply an outlet over here for our inverter. And then over here, it'll come behind and then do another outlet. And then attach back to our inverter. So it's good to have it here. It's easy to wire because we're not going into the walls of the van. And I would not suggest doing 120 volt inside the walls of your van. Even if you really shield it with cable and stuff like that, you don't know over time when that wire is going to short, and I think that could be pretty dangerous. Again, that's just my opinion. So it's going to go here, and now everything can be wired inside. We don't have to go through the walls or anything like that. And as you guys saw in our past live streams, we've already have the power system ready to go. It's over there, it's wired, it's all set. All it has to be done is broken down and put in here once we get the floor in. All right, last but not least, we're going to talk about what we're going to do next week, and then if you guys have any questions, just go ahead and put those in the chat. But I'm going to move this here, and the camera up. So in the top of the van, we've kind of temporarily got our lighting on. But on this panel over here, I'm going ahead and I'm measuring for our USB outlets. So I'm going to have 2 USB outlets because we're going to have overhead storage. And the 2 Flatline Vanco cabinets, they're 4 feet each. Inside, actually on the bottom of it, we're going to mount an LED light on the bottom of each of them. And so we have some underglow lighting from the cabinets, but those need power, and they're also removable. So if we do a USB port, we can wire it to where it can just plug in when the cabinets are up. When you want to take them out, you can just simply unplug it. If you wanted to, say you're laying down in bed and you want to discharge your phone, you have power in both of the cabinets. So that's going to get wired. Now the next reason I have this all taken out, I have the insulation taken out, is we have our air conditioner. So up here, let's change the camera one more time. So we finished putting our template in for the Dometic RTX 2000. So everything's good to go. We're just waiting on a spacer. So that's what I didn't mention last week. The reason that we did not install the AC unit is I need a 1/2 inch plus an inch. I need one more of these, but I need it an inch thickness. The reason I'm doing that is because the AC unit was going to hang down an inch too far into the van, and I didn't like that, so we needed another spacer. But now the challenge will be wiring. So we need to take that wire powering it, the 12-volt wire that's pretty thick gauge, and wire it into our power system. Luckily, with the Adventure Wagon system, this upholstered piece right here, it's like a thermoform plastic, and what's nice is there's a channel in here. So it's about the width of, I say like 2 fingers, and that's enough to get that wire down through here. And what's cool is this can easily come out, and you could be able to run the wire. So the plan is get the 4 started to knock out. When the part comes in, we'll get back to the AC unit. We'll run this wire down, and you guys will have a full video on that. But that, there we go. That's pretty much it for the live stream tonight. So, let me know if you guys have any questions. I may save the Evergreen, Colorado reactions for another video. If you guys have, let me know if you guys have any questions on that show that we went to. I'd be curious to see what you guys thought about it so far. But the products that I've been mentioning in this video, there's a pretty cool thing that I've created. And if you guys are a longtime follower of the channel, you know that I have created a DIY van build cheat sheet. And for those of you who don't know what this is a great list to help you save time and money with some curated products. So I created this list using the past 3 years of my Amazon purchases. So stuff that I bought, I've used in the shop, they're on this list, and you guys don't have to waste time combing the internet and finding stuff, buying it, kind of vetting it for yourself and finding out that it's not good. You can simply go to this list, and it's 100% free. So when you put your name and email address in this, it's going to send it right to your inbox, and you're going to get this list. So it looks like an Excel sheet, because that's pretty much what it is. It's an organized Excel sheet with links to Amazon, and everything is organized into categories. So anything from cargo storage to electrical items that are used in the van. This can be fuses, breakers, stuff like the Blue Sea systems that I was just talking about. We have hardware, fasteners, insulation, onboard air, roofing. So anything that are used to, for example, these glands that waterproof between the like the solar panels and stuff like that I do. We have security, we have solar, like I was just talking about. Thomas says when we upgraded his van, we used these 50-watt panels. We used 4 of them. They fit and worked excellent. And then last but not least, the most important thing on this list that I think will help anybody doing a DIY van build, something that I wish I had before I started building, was a list of tools. Stuff that I wouldn't have to go back and forth to Lowe's 100 times. Stuff that if I just bought like 10 or 20 of these things, I would be set to start my van build. That is what this list is. So what's on this list is stuff like we have our riv nut adapter tool. That is what I use to install all the rivets for the Adventure Wagon interior system. The next thing I had was like the deburring tool. So all the holes that you drill out have the sharp edges. This tool takes off of those sharp edges. An expensive piece, but very, very necessary, especially for this next thing coming up, is the Milwaukee ProPEX expansion tool. So that's on this list. It really makes stuff very, very, very quick. Let's see, let's do one more thing. We use the wire and cable cutter. So a lot of electrical items that are on here as well. So this one, that's a special cutter for welding wire. So that really fine stranded wire, this shaves it very cleanly, allows you to put it into the battery lugs. But if you guys want this list, it is completely free. All you have to do is go to vanbuilderhq.com or the link in the description below. You can download the DIY van build cheat sheet, completely free. Just put your name and email address. It'll come straight to your inbox. And I really think it's going to help you out with your van build. It's just a place where, very convenient, you can look at all the stuff. The bonus is it helps out the channel. All right, so let's see here. Yeah, so the next thing on the list, we are going to remove all this stuff probably tomorrow. And these live streams are going to be more focused on status of the van and updates. When I do the Dometic install, we'll talk about that in a live stream, but there will be a beginning to end video showing you the complete install process. I've already started the first half for the adapter plate. The next half will be actually mounting and installing the AC itself. Then we'll get into, we'll do the floor. And I'm really excited about putting the power system in. It's sitting over here, just it's just waiting to be put in, but we're working on it. Yeah, guys, but that is going to be the live stream tonight. I'll stay on here for about 2 more minutes, see if anybody has any questions. Just put those in the chat. But yeah, I'll stand here for about 4 more minutes. We'll sign off in just a minute. So let me know if you guys have any questions. I'm going to see if I forgot anything that I wanted to talk to you guys about. Yeah, we'll pretty much be talking about probably the PEX fittings and stuff like that pretty soon. So we'll do another plumbing tutorial video. All right, guys, well, we're going to call that for the live stream, and we will see you guys next time. Make sure you guys bring your questions. Happy to answer them live on the stream. If not, you can put them in the comments below. And if you have any suggestions for some future videos, some stuff that you want to see covered, let me know again in the comments as well. And until then, I'll see you guys on the next live stream.